For 1,000 years, the galaxy had known nothing but silence. On the luminous command deck of the Concordate Central Hub, Counselor Elith watched the starfields flicker through the viewport, her expression unreadable. Around her, representatives from a dozen species, sleek avian diplomats, towering crystalline beings, and burly reptilian elders, murmured nervously. The glow of countless worlds, once vibrant with trade and culture, now seemed dimmed by an invisible threat. 1,000 years without war, it was supposed to last forever. And yet the silence shattered in an instant. The alarm cut through the calm like a scream. "Unidentified warships detected in the Greska system," shouted the sensor officer, his claws trembling. Energy signatures match Vorath Dominion weaponry, heavy plasma cannons, long-range missile arrays. They're locking onto civilian colonies. The council chamber erupted in stunned disbelief. The Vorath were a nightmare from the past, barbaric conquerors who had once razed hundreds of systems before their collapse. Every history book treated their era like a cautionary tale, a dark shadow eclipsed by the light of peace. "Impossible," whispered Elith. They were sealed away, lost in the dark space rift. She turned sharply to the human ambassador seated to her left. The human, a tall woman with ice-blue eyes and a grin that didn't quite reach them, shrugged. "Never underestimate old enemies. They've had centuries to regroup. Maybe they're ready to pick the galaxy apart again." Her tone was too calm, too casual. The room stiffened. Outside, the Greska colonies were already burning. Explosions rippled through the holographic map as red markers blinked over cities being reduced to ash. Panic surged through the chamber. "Deploy defense fleets," cried a reptilian elder, pounding his fist. "The peacekeepers must respond." "Negative," the human ambassador interrupted smoothly. "You're bound by the Pact of Serenity. No weapons may be used without unanimous consent. That includes all offensive maneuvers. We're paralyzed by protocol." A murmur spread across the chamber. The ancient peace had become a cage. Suddenly, the room's calm crackled. A deep, rumbling voice filled the space. "This is Admiral Core of the Terran Fleet. We are activating contingency protocols. Fleet Sol Prime is mobilizing. We do not wait for your permission." Gasps and protests erupted. The human ambassador smiled, teeth flashing. "War never went away for us. We just hid it." Elith's eyes narrowed. "You risk sparking a galaxy-wide conflict." The human shrugged. "We didn't start this war. We're finishing it." With laughter. Outside the viewport, the first human warships powered up, their hulking forms gleaming cold under distant suns. The millennium of peace was over, and humanity was roaring into battle. The Concordate's council chamber still buzzed from the shock of humanity's defiance, but nothing prepared the delegates for what came next. On the holoscreens, battle reports arrived in waves. Human soldiers engaging the Vorath, with an audacity that defied all protocol and expectations. The footage showed small squads dropping into contested zones with reckless abandon. One video showed a human captain, grinning wildly under her helmet, barking orders as her squad tore through enemy ranks. "We're just getting started." Her voice crackled through the comms, followed by raucous laughter. The room fell silent. "How can they laugh?" hissed Counselor Ron, the tall, serpentine envoy from Trelka, in the face of death. The human ambassador, standing casually by the viewport, shook her head. "Because they've been waiting for this. Waiting to remind the galaxy what war really means." Outside the Concordate's orbital station, Terran warships streaked toward the front lines in formations that made the military strategists' heads spin. Unlike the graceful, energy-efficient vessels favored by other races, the human ships were brute force incarnate, thick armor plating, clusters of missile launchers, and massive plasma cannons. They looked ugly, unwieldy, and dangerous. Admiral Core's voice echoed over the comm channel again. "We're not here to negotiate. We're here to end this." On the Greska front, the first ground engagement unfolded with brutal clarity. Human drop pods slammed into the battlefield, explosions rocking the ground. Soldiers spilled out, not with solemn discipline but with gleeful shouts. Their movements were erratic, darting between cover, improvising with scavenged equipment, setting traps that seemed more like games than tactics. The Vorath, seasoned warriors themselves, were stunned. "What madness is this?" snarled Vorath Captain Zarn, his mandibles twitching in disbelief as human marines flipped grenades with manic smiles. They fight like children playing with fire. But that madness was lethal. Human squads tore through Vorath lines with an unpredictable blend of brute strength and reckless ingenuity. One squadron rigged an abandoned colony's geothermal vents to explode beneath enemy armor columns, while another used sound grenades to mimic Vorath war cries, sowing chaos among their formations. Back on the Concordat station, diplomats scrambled to send ceasefire requests and warnings. But the humans ignored them all. "They're renegades," Counselor Ilith warned. "They're breaking the treaty and dragging us into war." The human ambassador laughed softly. "No treaty can contain us anymore. Peace is a luxury. We remember what war demands." In a rare private briefing, Admiral Kor explained to select Concordat members. His gaze was hard, almost amused. "Humans don't just fight wars. We laugh at them because we understand the stakes. Fear makes others freeze. We thrive in the chaos." He paused, voice dropping. "We're the echo of a violent past, and the shield of a violent future. If you want peace, you need someone who knows how to break it." The camera zoomed in on a human corporal crouched in a ruined village. His helmet's HUD blinked warnings. Low ammo, heavy enemy presence. He grinned. "Bring it on," he muttered. Then he laughed. Loud, clear, and terrifying. Across the galaxy, a new sound spread like wildfire. The unmistakable roar of human laughter in the heart of war. Deep beneath the surface of the Sol system's moon Titan, a cavernous vault hummed to life after centuries of silence. Automated factories and assembly lines, long dormant, roared back into action, churning out weapons and war machines that had been mothballed since humanity's last great conflicts. Rusting hulls of dreadnoughts were refitted with cutting-edge plasma cannons, missile racks, and layered armor, the kind of brutal firepower the Concordat thought humanity had abandoned forever. In the command chamber of Fleet Sol Prime, Admiral Kor stood over a holotable showing the deployment plans. Around him, veterans whose names were etched into the annals of forgotten wars trained recruits fresh from decades of peace. The air was thick with a mix of grim determination and restless excitement. "Remember, this isn't a game," Kor said, his voice low and steady. "Our ancestors survived by mastering war's chaos. We won't just fight Vorath. We'll make them regret it." A young recruit named Sarah Vance tightened her grip on her pulse rifle. She had grown up hearing stories of humanity's savage past, but this was her first real taste of combat. The stakes were crushingly clear. "Fear is the enemy," her drill sergeant barked. "Outsmart it, or die trying." On the front lines, Sarah's unit dropped onto a contested moon orbiting a shattered Concordat colony. Vorath patrols swarmed the ruins, brutal and merciless, but humans fought back with a ferocity the aliens hadn't seen in centuries. The skirmish unfolded like a brutal dance. Grenades tossed with reckless flair, pulse rounds hammering through alien armor, human soldiers slipping through shadows to strike and vanish. "What kind of madness is this?" hissed a Vorath captain after his patrol was decimated. "They fight like animals possessed by rage and laughter." Meanwhile, Terran warships blotted out stars as they pushed into Vorath-held space. The massive capital ships bristled with weaponry designed for total destruction. Concordat scientists had once theorized these relics obsolete, archaic relics of humanity's violent youth, but now they were proof the old ways still held terrible power. Elsewhere, in the depths of the Titan Vault, the last of the war machines rolled out. The Juggernaut-class assault mechs, colossal bipedal giants armed with heavy cannons and missile pods, armored with reactive plating that shimmered under plasma fire. Sarah's squadron linked up with a Juggernaut crew for their next mission, a direct strike into the heart of a Vorath supply depot. The battle was brutal. Mechs stomped through alien fortifications, flattening bunkers as humans swarmed from every direction. Vorath tried to adapt, deploying advanced bioweapons and chemical agents, but the humans responded with improvised tactics, adapting on the fly. Why don't they just surrender? Sarah whispered amid the chaos. Her squad leader laughed, voice cold. Because surrender is not in their nature. Neither is mercy. As the last Vorath defenders fell, the human forces planted explosives and withdrew with surgical precision. Back in the council chambers, a grim message arrived. The Vorath are unprepared for this level of warfare. Their morale is crumbling. They expected peace, not a bloodthirsty storm. Illith exchanged a wary glance with the human ambassador. We didn't start this war, the ambassador said softly, but we're damned sure finishing it. The galaxy's fragile peace was breaking apart, and humanity's war machines were waking from their long slumber. The shattered plains of Draxian IV stretched wide beneath a storm-darkened sky, the remnants of once thriving cities smoldering in the distance. A ragged wind carried ash and the faint hum of distant gunfire. Here, on the front lines, the true face of humanity's warcraft was about to reveal itself. Lieutenant Sarah Vance crouched behind a crumbling wall, her pulse rifle trembling in her hands, but her grin steady. Around her, the squad moved like shadows, darts of movement and violence, improvising with a savage elegance. This was not the cold, precise warfare the Concordat had grown accustomed to. It was something else entirely, raw, brutal, and chaotic. Eyes sharp, Sarah whispered, voice low but fierce. We don't just fight to win. We fight to survive. And we make damned sure they regret every breath they take. Across the ruined battlefield, the Vorath forces massed in a tight formation, confident their overwhelming numbers would crush the peaceful humans. But the Terran Legion had other plans. Suddenly, a burst of explosions erupted in the enemy's rear lines. Human squads had infiltrated their supply depots and sabotaged fuel reserves. A Juggernaut mech stomped into the open, firing salvo after salvo of plasma bolts, each impact tearing through alien armor like paper. The Vorath commander snarled, issuing desperate orders. Kill them. Show no mercy. But the humans were already disappearing, melding into ruined buildings, setting traps, and striking again where the enemy least expected. Nearby, a human squad leader called out over comms, voice edged with a reckless joy. They think this is chaos. This is art. An alien war correspondent embedded with the Concordat forces recorded the scene, stunned. How can they be so joyous in battle? So unrestrained? She asked herself aloud, eyes wide as human soldiers laughed, shouted war cries, and fought with a ferocity born of deep history. The human general overseeing the operation was not surprised. War is the crucible where humans were forged, he told the correspondent later, voice grim. We don't romanticize it. We survive it by mastering the madness. He paused, gaze hard. Where others see death, we see opportunity. Where others freeze, we thrive. Back on Draxian IV, Sarah ducked a plasma blast, rolling to cover with a manic grin. She lobbed a grenade, then sprinted forward, shouting encouragement to her squad. Keep moving. Don't give them a moment's rest. One Vorath warrior lunged at her, claws flashing. Sarah sidestepped, pistol whipping him with brutal precision. His fall was silent but final. As night fell, the humans consolidated their gains, having turned a desperate defense into a crushing counterattack. On the Concordat station, Illith and other counselors watched live feeds, their faces pale. They fight with madness, she whispered. But it's controlled madness, strategy wrapped in chaos. The human ambassador smiled across the room. Chaos is a language we speak fluently. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, not just their weapons, but their spirit. War was no longer a distant memory. It was a roaring, laughing beast, one that humans tamed and unleashed with deadly grace. And the Vorath were learning the hard way. To fight humanity was to dance on the edge of madness, and humanity led the waltz. The once unshakable confidence of the Vorath Dominion began to crack beneath the relentless human assault. Their forces, scattered and battered, withdrew into shadowed systems, nursing wounds they hadn't expected. Intelligence reports from the front lines painted a grim picture. The invincible warlords were faltering. In the sprawling war room aboard the Concordette's flagship, tension was palpable. Counselors debated fiercely. Some called for total mobilization against humanity's reckless campaign. Others urged negotiations. But no consensus emerged. The human ambassador watched with a quiet smile, sipping her tea, as if the entire debate were a game played for her amusement. Outside, human warships carved paths through Vorath fleets, their hulking shapes casting ominous shadows across starfields. The Concordette's advanced ships, sleek, efficient, and diplomatic, were being overwhelmed by raw firepower and brutal tactics. Aboard the flagship Sol Invictus, Admiral Kor stood on the bridge, observing the tactical map glowing with red dots, Vorath positions crumbling under human siege. "They expected us to bow to peace," Kor said, voice low but fierce. "They thought we'd be tamed. Instead, we're the storm no one saw coming." He activated the comm channel, sending a message that rippled through enemy lines. "Vorath Dominion, your reign of fear ends now. Surrender or face annihilation." The response was silence. Instead, intercepted transmissions revealed desperation. Vorath commanders bickering, accusing each other of betrayal, of cowardice. Morale was fracturing. Back in the council chambers, rumors spread like wildfire. The humans had unleashed a new weapon. Something unlike anything seen before. A weapon so devastating it shattered an entire Vorath flagship in a single strike. The ambassador leaned in, voice low. "The Tempest Array. A concentrated plasma cannon designed to vaporize targets kilometers away. We didn't build it to threaten peace, we built it to enforce it." The Vorath, shaken, ordered a full withdrawal from contested space. It was an unprecedented move, one that stunned the galaxy. But humans did not relent. Instead, their laughter grew louder in communications, a mocking taunt that infuriated and unnerved their enemies. "What madness is this?" Counselor Ron seethed. "They revel in destruction." "Not madness," the human ambassador replied calmly. "Control. Power. The certainty that the next war will be ours to shape." Amid the shifting tides, whispers began among smaller Concordat worlds. Some saw the humans as protectors, fierce and unyielding. Others feared a new era of dominance. In a hidden outpost, Sarah Vance readied herself for the next battle. Her squad had learned to move faster, strike harder, and laugh in the face of death. "We don't just win wars," she said, checking her gear. "We make sure no one forgets who they fought." And as the stars burned bright around them, the galaxy braced itself, because the millennium of peace was over, and the storm that was humanity showed no sign of stopping. In the dimly lit archives of the Concordette's Central Library, an anxious scholar flipped through ancient Terran records, dusty holodisks, worn manuscripts, and holographic testimonies spanning centuries. These records told stories not of noble peacekeepers, but of a species forged in fire and blood. The historian, Dr. Lena Orrick, uncovered countless accounts of humanity's brutal past. Centuries of tribal wars, devastating world conflicts, and apocalyptic wars that nearly wiped the species out. It was a history steeped in violence, but also resilience and adaptability. "Humans don't just remember war," she whispered to her assistant. "They understand it, embrace it, even celebrate it." Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Lieutenant Sarah Vance paused during a lull, staring at the horizon, where enemy flares still flickered. Her squad gathered close, sharing stories, some grim, some darkly humorous. "We don't laugh to mock death," Sarah said quietly. We laugh because if you don't, it'll break you." Her words echoed the unspoken truth behind the human way of war. That laughter was a shield, a weapon as vital as any rifle or missile. Back in the Concordat Council, debate raged. Some envoys branded humanity as dangerous, too unpredictable, too eager for conflict. Others acknowledged a harsher truth. Peace required strength, and humans embodied a raw power no one else could match. The human ambassador stepped forward, addressing the chamber with calm conviction. "We don't romanticize war. We prepare for it because peace is fragile, always has been," she said. "We laugh at death not out of disrespect, but because we faced it so often we learned to master it." She paused, eyes sharp. This laughter is the sound of survival, of a species that refuses to be broken. Concordat scientists presented a chilling analysis. Humans possessed unique psychological resilience, born from millennia of hardship and conflict. Their brains processed fear and pain differently, enabling them to perform under stress that would paralyze others. One researcher summarized it starkly. Humans don't just survive war, they thrive in it. Admiral Core, visiting the council, reinforced the point. Our ancestors lived through apocalypse after apocalypse. We learned that the only way to guarantee peace is to be ready to fight and win decisively. We don't seek endless war. We seek finality. He met the gaze of Counselor Illith, who nodded slowly. "We must respect this truth," she admitted, "or be crushed by it." That night, on a distant battlefield, Sarah crouched beneath alien stars, her squad laughing softly after another victory. The laughter was not just relief, it was defiance. Across the galaxy, the Concordat came to a fragile understanding. Humanity's war was not madness, but a mirror reflecting the harshest realities of survival. The laughter ringing through battlefields was a promise, a warning, that humans were ready to shape the galaxy's future on their own terms. And as the fires of war burned brighter, one thing was clear. Humanity's laughter was the soundtrack of a species that refused to fall. The shattered surface of Vorath Prime bore scars of endless bombardment. Craters smoldered where entire cities once stood, skies thick with ash and fire. It was here that the Vorath Dominion chose to make their final stand. This was not just a battle for survival, it was a desperate gamble to reclaim their legacy. Inside the cavernous war chamber beneath the capital, Supreme Commander Zarn paced like a caged beast. His mandibles clicked with frustration as he barked orders to generals and strategists. The once proud Dominion now resembled a cornered animal, snarling at fate. "Deploy all remaining fleets to the outer rim," Zarn ordered. "We will not surrender our home without a fight that shatters the heavens." But even his voice betrayed the doubt gnawing at the edges of his resolve. Intelligence reports streamed in, human fleets crushing resistance, juggernaut mechs leveling fortresses with relentless precision. Far above, the first wave of human warships entered Vorath Prime's orbit, casting long shadows across the desolation below. Admiral Core stood on the bridge of the Sol Invictus, his gaze cold and unwavering. "This ends here," he said quietly. "No mercy, no hesitation." On the planet's surface, Lieutenant Sarah Vance led her squad through the ruins, every step heavy with the knowledge that this battle could decide the fate of the Dominion, and perhaps the galaxy. "Remember what we fight for," Sarah urged. "We fight to end this, to keep the peace alive after the war." The ground trembled as juggernauts stomped into battle, plasma cannons blazing. The Vorath responded with ferocity, spitting venomous fire and launching wave after wave of bioengineered beasts. Explosions rocked the battlefield. Human soldiers dodged and weaved, firing with grim determination, laughter rising in defiant bursts even as comrades fell. Sarah's squad charged a fortified position, clearing enemy bunkers with precision strikes and improvised traps. As the battle raged, a Vorath warlord confronted Sarah, claws extended in a deadly arc. "You think your laughter can save you," he snarled. Sarah dodged, pistol raised. "It's not about saving. It's about surviving and winning." Her shot struck true, and the warlord collapsed, eyes wide with disbelief. Above, the Tempest array charge, a brilliant pulse of concentrated plasma searing through the Vorath flagship Dreadfang, vaporizing it in a blinding explosion. The flagship's destruction shattered enemy morale, sending shockwaves through their remaining forces. In the final moments, Supreme Commander Zarn stood amidst the ruins, his pride shattered but his spirit unbroken. "Humans," he muttered, "you fight with fire and laughter. I see now that this is your strength." As human forces secured the capital, Admiral Kor's voice echoed across comms. "This war is over. The Dominion surrenders." Silence fell. Then, the Concordat and Vorath representatives agreed to terms, an uneasy truce born of respect and exhaustion. Back on the battlefield, Sarah exhaled deeply, the weight of victory settling on her shoulders. "We laughed through the storm," she said softly, "and we stood when others fell. The millennium of peace was shattered, yes, but from the ashes rose a new order, tempered by war and the fierce spirit of humanity." The first light of dawn stretched across the rebuilt capital of Vorath Prime, casting long shadows over battle-scarred streets now quiet but scared. The war was over. Across the galaxy, the news of humanity's decisive victory rippled through star systems like a seismic shockwave. The Concordat, once fractured and fearful, now faced a transformed reality. Humans had torn through centuries of complacency, not with cold diplomacy, but with laughter, fury, and unyielding will. Lieutenant Sarah Vance stood on a balcony overlooking the city, the weight of the war etched in her tired eyes. Around her, the squad gathered, some scared, some lost, but all alive, all changed. "We fought not just with weapons," Sarah said quietly, "but with the fire inside us. The fire that doesn't burn out in peace or war." The human ambassador addressed the Concordat Council one last time, her voice steady and resolute. "Peace is fragile," she reminded them, "but it is worth every scar." Humanity showed the galaxy that peace is not given, it is earned. Her words echoed across chambers and council halls, inspiring a new generation of leaders and warriors alike. On Vorath Prime, former enemies began rebuilding together, forging tentative alliances in the fragile calm. The Vorath warriors who once sneered at humanity's laughter now found themselves listening, learning that this fierce joy was not madness but survival. In a quiet moment, Supreme Commander Zarn met with Admiral Kor in a neutral chamber. "You fought with strength," Zarn admitted, "but also with something I did not understand: joy. A laughter that did not hide fear, but conquered it." Kor nodded, his eyes steady. "It's the human way. To face the darkness with a smile. To fight, yes, but to live beyond the fight." As peace settled, the galaxy began to shift. The millennium of fragile calm was replaced by a new era, one where humanity's raw power and unbreakable spirit became a cornerstone of galactic order. Back on Earth, the war memorial stood tall, etched with names not just of the fallen but of those who laughed through the storm, who never let hope die. Sarah walked among them, the ghosts of battles past whispering in the wind. She smiled softly, a laugh escaping her lips. Because humanity's roar, their laughter, their defiance, would echo through the stars forever. A millennium of peace may have shattered, but from its broken glass, a new dawn was born, and it was bright, fierce, and undeniably human.